Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to this new WeWeb office hours. So I'm Quentin. I think you've seen me last time. I'm in charge of marketing here at WeWeb, and today I'm introducing someone new, Slavo, that will introduce himself. So the floor is yours, Slavo.
Thank you, Quentin. Hello everyone. My name is Slavo. I'm originally from Europe, currently based in Houston, Texas. And I guess a few words about my background. I'm not a coder. I do understand technology. I run a small tech agency here in Houston. What we do is we build cloud native applications, typically highly scalable, highly performant applications for customers from within energy, finance, and media industries. And I interact a lot with clients, and during those interactions, already quite some time ago, I realized that I need a little more than just a few slides or mock-ups or anything of that nature when I talk to them. And so I needed clickable prototypes, even MVPs and some stages of the discussions with the client. But I can't afford to take valuable time away from developers to do these kind of things. And so I want to, and I need to build these applications myself, which is why I kind of ventured into the world of no code maybe 2 or 3 years ago when those things were still in its infancy, and they just weren't there. I tried all kinds of tools. None of them really served my purpose very well until I landed literally on WeWeb. I think it was in October of
Nice.
last year. And WeWeb completely opened my eyes because I realized that this is the beginning, the true beginning of a no-code revolution, something that I was waiting for such a long time. And so I started playing with WeWeb, started to do things with it, and I came to love it. And then I discovered Xano for backend. And Xano is a similar story to WeWeb, but from the backend side. Xano is a phenomenal backend no code tool that allows you to build very scalable backends very quickly. And so when I put together WeWeb and Xano, I realized that we are staring at a paradigm shift in software development, where you no longer have to work with lots and lots of coders in order to deliver and deploy even very sophisticated, highly scalable products. So it got me thinking that this is probably finally the beginning of a completely new era, and I'm very excited to be part of it. Now, today for the office hour with WeWeb, with our friends from WeWeb, we only have an hour, so we are not going to build anything super sophisticated, and I'm not going to pretend to you that what we are going to build is useful in any shape or form. But what we're going to build together today will show you the capabilities of both WeWeb on the front end and when combined with Xano on the back end.
Nice.
And that's what I hope that we accomplish. And we have an hour today, so I'll do as much as I can in that 1 hour, while Quentin and maybe a few others will be answering the questions. But just imagine if this is what we can do in an hour. Imagine what you could do in a day or a week with these two tools. So paradigm shift, in my opinion. So what today is going to be about, we are going to build this little weather app that you're looking at right now on your screens. Again, not
Let me
particularly useful.
show it to everybody. And
Yes.
in the meantime, yeah, sorry, because we've got like lots of comments. By the way, thank you, Slavo, for this introduction. It was really awesome. Don't hesitate to ask question. I see that Sami he wants to ask question already. Like, don't hesitate to like send all your questions in the chat. We will answer them. And also, hello to our friends at Xano. They are in the chat too. So if you have any questions about Xano, don't hesitate to ping them. They're here for like to help you. And as Lavos said, we are huge Xano fans here at WeWeb. Me especially, I tried the tool, I love it. So hopefully we'll do some more use cases together. And that's it.
Thank you, Quentin. Yes, so I believe Michael and Jack from Xano are on the stream. So thank you for being here. And I'm very glad, especially Michael is here. Michael is an awesome resource at Xano who will probably get me out of trouble if I get in trouble. But no. So what we are going to do today is actually inspired by one of the videos that Michael at Xano did some time ago. So it is a simple, super simple weather app where all you do is you enter a city. So I'm in Texas, so Dallas. You hit a button, and what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I might have deleted the backend in preparation for this. Okay, never mind. Live demos never go as they should, so yeah. That's fine. I deleted some databases when I was preparing for the live demo, so that's okay. That's perfect. So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to build what I showed you, but it will actually work. So let's start with Xano. So Xano is really a great backend tool, and what I really like about Xano, apart from the fact that it is highly scalable, it is no code, they have a very generous free tier. So anyone can sign up for a free tier with Xano, and then you can scale it from there. So the weather app, this weather app that we will build and that will actually work, unlike the demo I showed you, we are going to take the weather data from another free resource, which is the Weather API. So believe it or not, majority of publicly available weather applications around the world, they use this API for sourcing their data. And again, they also have a free tier, and depending on the number of requests, you can then jump into a paid tier. So you can create an account, and once you have an account with them, I already do. As I said, they have a free tier, which will give you all that you need. And yeah, it shows my API key. I'll regenerate it after this, after this. So I'll show you a few API keys today, but don't worry, I'm going to destroy all of them after this session. So so we are all secure. So yeah, so you open an account, you get an API key, and then there is a nice option here called API Explorer, and over here you enter your API key. So I have it here for it to work, and then because WeWeb is French, we're going to look at Paris rather than London, and yeah, you can run a call basically. So we are looking for current weather in Paris, and we got a 200 response, which is a good response from the API. And here is the actual API call, and here is the weather data we got through that call. And I want to point your attention at two things here, because that is kind of the structure we're going to use as we build our backend, as we build the application. The response comes separated into two parts. One is the location data, so it gives you the name, of the location you searched for, the region, the coordinates, and then the second part of the response is the actual weather data. We are going to, for the purpose of this exercise, we are trying to make it simple. We need to squeeze everything into 1 hour. In our weather app, we are only going to care about a few things. So the data we care about from this response will be the name of the city, the country, and from weather, we'll look at the temperature in Celsius and wind speed in kilometers per hour. And probably the last piece of data we'll care about is when was the last time this data was updated. Because when you look at this weather application that we are trying to build, the idea is that you enter a city, you hit the check weather button, and it will display the current weather. It will show the location on the map, and then it will enter that record. It will enter that record into the table below. That's basically what the application does. On this particular screen, I have the coordinates. I just use them in this demo here because you can do all kinds of interesting calculations with the coordinates, but we're not going to do that today. So we will ignore the lat long for the purposes of this session, and we'll focus on city, temperature, wind, and when was the last update. So coming back to the API, so we have the
Maybe
API.
to explain just, sorry, Slavo, what it will do in the final app, because like we messed the preview, but just to explain the logic, so people can enter like a city, it will check the weather in the map, and then it will be stored in the table underneath, and you can like delete the row after. But you get like all your previous searches, they will be stored inside XANO and be like displayed in WeWeb.
Exactly right. Yes. Okay. So let's start building up the application, and I'm starting from scratch. As per Joyce, no cheating here, no tricks.
Yeah, no cheating. Nice.
No cheating, nothing pre-prepared. We'll do everything together. So I am in my WeWeb workspace inside Xano, and I start the process by creating a database. So this is the existing table for the database for this database. Okay, so I'm just going to create a new one. So I'll add a new table, and I really love the simplicity of Xano. It's very, very straightforward. I mean, I never read a single manual from Xano. I looked at a few videos. That was about it, and I think it's pretty easy to figure out. So we create a database, call it demo weather, and you know what? Before I do that, I will create. I want to have the API calls in a separate group, and so in Xano you can create different API groups, and then Xano will populate those API groups with the endpoints for the APIs. So I will create a group called
That's really cool. Like we'll see what it does. That's the thing that blown my mind when I tried Xano. Like
yeah, it's very, very cool. So I created an API group. So far we have no API endpoints in that group. But coming back to the database, so I'm going to create a table. So add table, weather demo, and we are going, and Xano is asking us whether it should create automatically the endpoints for this database, and it is asking us into which group it should place those endpoints. Weather app demo is the one we have just created. So I will create the table. And when we go back to the API group, we see that Xano already created all the endpoints we need for that database table. Very, very slick, very, very, very easy to use. So let's go back to the database. So weather demo is our table, and right now we have nothing in our table. But we said that in this table and in the applications, we are going to care about 3 pieces of data, or 4: the city, the country, the temperature, wind, and when it was last updated. So five data points. And we will get those data points into the Xano table. We'll get them from this weather API. So before we start populating our database with the weather data points, we need to create the fields in the database. And at this point, for one very, very cool feature from Xano to work properly, it is important that your database fields have exactly the same names as the JSON headers that you get from the call. That is important. I'll explain you later why. So the fields we are going to create are name. And again, super simple. You just select the field type. So name will be text. The next field we are going to care about is country. So again, that's a text field. The next, so those are the only two fields we are going to care about from the location set. And then from the current weather set, there are three data points we are going to enter. And create fields. So one is temperature in Celsius. Now, this temperature in Celsius will be a decimal number, okay? Not an integer or text. I select decimal, and the only reason for that is because it can store decimal numbers, you can do calculations with it later on the back end, which is why I always go for decimal format of the field for these particular kind of applications. So that's temp C. And the next one we care about is, we said, wind in kilometers per hour. That will be also a decimal field. Okay. And finally, we want to know when, what's the timestamp on that particular weather forecast or current weather. And so that field is called last updated. So that will be just a text, very simple text. That's it. So we have the database table in Xano defined with the fields, and we have all the endpoints defined for this table. That was done automatically by Xano. And in the next step, what we need to do, we need to grab data from the weather API and bring it into this table. So that's what we're going to do next. For that, let me go back to the endpoints for this group. For that, we need to actually create a new API call, so to speak. In a endpoint rather. Again, we are going to now define a call that will grab data from the weather API and populate the database in Xano. So we'll start.
If you can explain it a little, because maybe it's not clear for everyone, but by default, Xano creates all the endpoints to do a CRUD, like create, read, update, and delete data inside your database. But you can also create specific endpoints that will trigger like some small functions to maybe like fetch data or like refine the data and then give it back to your database, or even give it back to external services like we'll do with WeWeb. And that's what Slavo is doing right now.
Yes, excellent point, Quentin. Apologies, I did not explain. That's exactly right.
No problem.
So we have the standard calls, and now I'm going to create a custom endpoint to get the external data and populate the database. So I start by creating an API endpoint from scratch. So let's call it get weather. The verb will be get, obviously. We are not going to do any authentication for the purposes of this exercise. We'll not worry about that. And this is a part that I really like about Xano as well, is how you build your custom endpoints. It is super simple. They have three sections here: inputs, the function stack, and the output or the response. So in inputs, when we look back at the weather API call here, so here is the call, this URL, And we see that there is the standard part of the call up to here, up to that question mark. Then there's the key, which is my API key for the for the weather API. Then there's the city for which we are trying to get the weather. And then there is this last parameter, which we're not going to care about in this demo, that is air quality data. So we start building our call in Xano by copying this first part all the way down to the question mark. We go back to Xano, and we start building our call by an external make an external call. So we start with the URL of the external call. And again, you see that here I have only the part of the call that ends with a question mark, because all the other parameters are going to be dynamic. Now, before I continue with this, it is clear that we need to define two more parameters. We need to enter the key for my API, and we need to define the city. And both of them are well, one is fixed, is a constant, and the other is a variable. But let me focus first on the API key, because API keys, it is not something you really want to show in your, obviously not in your source code. You don't want to show it anywhere in the application as well.
At least only during live streaming.
Yes, only during live streaming. And Xano has a very cool way of handling it. Again, very easy. They have this setting section, and there you can put system variables. So here, for example, I will add the weather API.
Okay, yeah. So like it's like, yeah, I mean it's called this in this sidebar, but it's like environment variables in a development project. So yeah, like the variables that you won't never show to anybody.
Exactly.
Outside of the project.
Exactly. So we are going to call one called weather API, and that weather API key will be this. So I copy the value here, save it, and that's it. So when we go back to our API call that we're building, here is the custom call we are building, the get weather one. And when I go back to here, so we have, I didn't save it before. I'll go back here, sorry.
No worries.
Here is so it's this part all the way to the question mark. We go back to Xano. That's it. And it's a get call. And now we can start building the rest of this call.
Yeah, like the query params.
Exactly, the query parameters. So first we put in the key. So we call it key. And the value for that will be the API key we just created, the weather API there. So we have that defined. So that is the value we stored in the system variables. Now, the next part of the call is the city, is the queue. Okay, so let me save this, and that will be
dynamic, actually.
Yeah, exactly. That's a dynamic parameter, and that will be the input to this call. So I'll create here a text input. Call it.
Maybe to explain why it's gonna be dynamic. It's because like it's coming from the search bar, and it will come from like an API call from WeWeb. So to Xano, that will forward it to like the weather API, and then store it back to Xano, and then we'll get back from Xano to WeWeb.
Exactly. So this is where it's going to come from, the input box, and it's going to be sent to the backend. Then Xano is going to grab it, take it to the weather API, get the weather for that city, and bring the data back into the database. Okay, so that's going to be the flow. By the way, Quentin, we should say here that all of this is recorded, and it will be made available on the WeWeb website channel. So you can then follow all of this step by step and ask
We've got
questions through the community.
Question: is there a drop down in the search? Does it autofill? Are you asking Ati like for the search inside like WeWeb? Because I mean, there's actually an like you could do a drop down since our like new update from today, but to get like the autofill, you would have to list all the values possible through an API to the search bar to the dropdown. So you'll have to, from WeWeb to do a direct call, like create a collection inside WeWeb. We'll show you this later. Like populate it with all the cities inside the weather API, so that like the search bar, the dropdown knows which are the values you can autofill from. I don't know if it's clear, but don't hesitate to ask questions. But yeah, you would do this in WeWeb.
Okay, we do not have it in this demo, and I'm not planning to
Yeah.
do it. As Quentin explains, a little more involved so it's beyond the scope of this. Okay, so we'll create an input called, let's call it city. And then, so we have the input coming through city, and then in the actual API call, we will set the parameter Q, and the value will be dynamic, will be the city. Okay, so if we go back to the call we are trying to define, so we have the key, we have this defined, we have the Q defined, and the last thing we need to define is this AQI, which we are not going to use, but we still have to define it in the call. So we'll set another parameter, call it AQI, and we'll just hard code the value as no. This will not be a dynamic number. Okay. So that's it. So we have the URL for the base URL for the call, and we have the three parameters: the API key, the city, and the no for the air quality index. So basically, we have recreated this call in Xano. We save it, and now another cool feature Xano has is debugging or running these calls. So now, theoretically, if we enter the city of Paris in here, which is this input,
crossed.
yeah, then we run it through the API. Then, as a result, we should get weather for Paris. So let's see what it does, and voila, as they say in France, we have the result here. Quentin, can it be seen on the screen properly? I don't really have. Should I make it larger? Or is it
I switched like every time you've got a huge sidebar, I'm switching like our faces next to the screen. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
this
cool.
Is okay.
So here we have the result from Weather API, and as you can see, this is a classic JSON response that is structured accordingly. And the JSON response has two main sections: the request and the response. So in the request, we have what we asked for, right? The key, Paris, and again, this is all exposed because we didn't bother hiding it. But so we would not do that for real applications. We would do it differently, but just for the sake of this exercise. So that's the request. And then we have the response. And the response, again, consists of the location data and the weather data. Now, we don't care about the headers. We don't care about a lot of stuff in this JSON response. We only care about some of these data points. So in order to get to those data points that we really need, we need to parse the JSON using the dot notation. But again, Xano has a super easy, elegant way to do it. So you just hit the copy result button here, and then we go back, and we add another function to this API stack. So we hit add, and we are going to go into data manipulation, and we are going to create a variable. And let's call this first variable, let's call it location. And now we can define the content of this variable. So we are going to take the result from the first function, which is stored in API1, as you can see here. So the result from this external call is stored in API1. But we want to get only to the part of the JSON that we really care about. And we do that. You saw that previously I copied the whole JSON response. I just copied here. So this is the entire JSON response we got from that call. And I hit define. And then I just drill down to the section I really care about. And the section I really care about for location is here under location. So I click location, save. So once again, what we have done here, we took city as input into the function. We run the external request, got the data from the weather API, stored it in API1. Then we parsed the API1 response and stored the location data in a variable called location. So if we've done our job properly, and now instead of returning API1, we return location, let's do a quick test. For Paris, we are only going to get the location data from this call. So we should only get this first portion of the response. Let's see. And there we go. So we just got the location data from the JSON. So that works. But we also want to get the actual weather data. So for that, I would follow exactly the same process. I'll create a new variable and call it weather. And do exactly the same thing. I'll take the data from the API1 variable, and I will parse down through the response to the current section, which contains the weather data. That's it. So we took input.
Sorry, we've got one question from Ryu on YouTube. So we can now use variables in API request on WeWeb, like GWT token, etc. Yeah, so like since the release from several hours or even minutes ago, you can now use variables inside API calls. For things like GWT tokens, we'll do tutorials on how to store them and use them, and basically we'll revamp them in the near future because authentication is a whole new subject and will improve the user experience. But yeah, basically you can now do this.
Okay, so to carry on, like again, let's just repeat. So we have the input as city. We run the external data call, bring the data in, store in API1. Then we parse the location data out of API1, and we parse the weather data out of API1. So again, let's just check the weather part. So we have, instead of displaying the location, we'll display just weather. So now when I run this call for Paris, what we should get is only the weather data and no location data. And there you go. Okay. So that's cool. That all works. So in the final step for this API call, we want to store this parsed data in the database that we have created. Okay, so we have this table, weather demo, again, with name, country, temperature, wind, and when it was last updated. So let's go back to the get weather call. So we want to, as the final step of this API call, we want to store that data in that database. So we add another function, and this time it will be database request, and we are going to add a record. Okay, and we are going to add the record into the table called weather demo. Here is another slick feature that Xano has. In order to now populate the database with this data that I got from the weather API, they have this magic wand tool, or magic, whatever that is, pencil, magic wand. And I click on that, and it will auto-populate these fields from the variable I choose. So I want to start with location. When I hit that, it will automatically populate the corresponding JSON fields into the database fields. Very, very slick. One thing that we don't want, the timestamp, we just want a
Just to be clear, it can do this because like the field have the same names from the API
Exactly.
and in the
Exactly.
database. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, Quentin. And that is why I created the field names of the table, copying the fields from the API. Okay, that is important because that's when Xano can do this matching. So the name will come from location, country will come from location as well. Now, the temperature C, wind, kph, and last update will not come from location, but will come from weather. Okay, because we stored that here. You see, we stored it in the weather variable.
Yeah.
So these last three will come from weather. Okay, so again, before I leave this screen, the name and the country will come from the location variable, and the temperature, wind speed, and last updated will come from the weather variable. So that's it. So when we save this, we are done. So this call is done. So in the final test, what we are going to do, we are going to run this call, this function, stack for Paris. So what it is going to do now, it is going to get the data for the city of our choice, which is Paris. It will call Weather API, return the data. It will parse the location data and store it in the location variable. It will parse the weather data and store it in the weather data. And then it will write both location and weather into the database. That's what this is going to do. So I'll hit run. It just shows the location data, but don't worry about it. When we go to the database, voila, we have the data already in the database. So Paris, France, temperature 6 degrees Celsius, wind 13 kph, and the last update taking the local time. Okay, so that works fine. Now, just so that we have more data to work with in WeWeb when we move to the front end, I'm going to run that call 2 or 3 times. Yeah, exactly. So let's get London. Quentin, give me a city. What is your home city?
My home city is Nancy.
Nancy. Okay, very good. So we have
with a N-A-N.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. I've been there. Okay,
oh,
Nancy.
Yeah? Okay.
Yes, and because I'm in Texas, let's represent Texas, Austin.
I also, if you want more, I also lived in Bordeaux and Berlin.
Okay, great. Berlin. And finally, Bordeaux. That will be enough for our demo.
Yeah.
Bon. So we run the API call a few times. Now, oh, Strasbourg. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, so like in the chat, everybody wants a city now.
Okay.
So Strasbourg and Brussels. A lot of European cities and French cities.
Okay, Strasbourg. Brussels. Come on, we need to stop. Okay. Okay, I love Brussels, so I will. Okay, that's it. Fini. So we did it a few times. Yekaterinburg. Sorry for my Russian friend.
Yeah.
Dima.
I mean.
Okay, great. So we run the call. I don't know how many times, and now when we go to the database, voila! You see that we have all the data inside the database, and we are ready to start working on the back end. Before we move, on the front end. Before we move to the front end, there is one more thing I want to do here. You will understand why, and I don't want to waste time with that later. But I want these values in the table to be displayed in reversed order. So I want the last. Yeah, it is cold in Russia.
Yeah.
Yes. So I want this table to be displayed in reversed order. So the last record created, we want to show on top. And the way how you do that, again, is very, very simple in Xano. So when you go to the related endpoints, and we go to the call that will query all of the data, and we can tweak this call. especially the output of that call. So what we do here, we go into output and we change the sorting, okay? So we go into edit and we add a sort here, and we want to sort descending based on when that record was created. So we save that. So I'll show you what it looks like. So now the table will be displayed in reversed order. Okay, so Yekaterinburg in Russia was the last record we created, and it will be displayed as first in the table. Okay, great. So we are done with this, and we can now move on to WeWeb. Again, for the benefit of Joyce, no cheating. We are starting from scratch. So I'm going to create a new blank project. Call it weather app. And we are going to start in WeWeb with a blank canvas. And the way how we are going to go about this is that we'll first build a static UI, and then we're going to bind it to the data so that it gets dynamic. Okay, so we do not need navigation for the purposes of this demo, so we'll get rid of that. And we will work, again, keep in mind, we are trying to replicate more or less this design. So that's what we're going to do. So we'll have two sections. The top where the table is and the bottom section. Now, this is something that ever since I started doing these kind of things, I really believe in naming my design elements so that it doesn't get messy. So I'll just call this element current, and the second one will be past. Okay. Now, another thing that I like to do, I like to start
And
by...
you feel like, yeah, sorry, Slavo, like the naming your elements is not only like to like find them better. It's also like what's really powerful is that you see their name in the navigator. Because when you have lots of elements, it's easier to drag and drop them in the navigator. Whereas on the page, because on the page you've got lots and lots of elements, maybe containers and stuff like that. So yeah.
And that is a fantastic point, Quentin, because even in this app, the navigator will get quite busy with elements. And so you will see that the naming will make a big difference.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have the two sections. And then what I want to do is I want to put like always a container, in the section to start with, and typically I call it a content wrapper. And the reason why I want to do it is because this content wrapper is where I set the maximum width in pixels. Typically for normal web, I use 1300. Also we put some padding so it has some breathing space. So 50 is good all around. So this is the section where we are going to, where this is going to reside, okay? And we can actually, it's very easy to copy elements in WeWeb. You just hit Control-C, and then you hit Control, we can do it here, Control-V, and then just I move it to the, oh no, what happened?
I don't know.
Oh, a bug. Okay.
If you Command Z, maybe it's working.
Okay. I broke I broke the app. Okay, let's go again. Okay, I'm not going to waste time with naming it now so that we don't run out of time. Note it down, Quentin. We'll have to look at it.
Yeah.
I'll try
Flo,
to
because he's in the chat. So like Flo is our CPO.
Okay, so here, and then I'll put another container into this section below. And again, I'll do the same. I'll set the max width to 1300 and give it a padding of 50. Oops, too aggressive with the zeros, 50. Okay, great. So in here, I want to put, again, two divs. And one I will call left.
Oh. That's
the
weird.
beauty of live demos after a fresh release. And this one I will call right. Okay. And I'm going to space them, or I'll give them 50% width each, like so that they are sitting next to each other, like that. Because again, one will contain the map and one will contain this data. Okay. So that's that. And here we can already start doing some fun stuff. So let's place a table so that we start.
Actually, saying that it would be great to have a WeWeb bootcamp with a real clueless user using WeWeb and Xano for the MVP from scratch. I mean, yeah, that's the thing we are trying to do. I mean, with the self-serve and the onboarding, we're trying on revamping the onboarding so that you should be able to do it yourself. But yeah, we'll definitely do that. And Joyce in the chat is our product marketing manager. She's working on lots of tutorials to help you like bootstrap WeWeb and WeWeb plus Xano projects.
Okay. So we have added a table here, and actually what we will do straight away, we will bind this table to the Xano data. So when you create a table or you add a table to your screen, it will come with some pre-populated data. Now, keep in mind that we only care about the first line. We can delete the other 3 lines because we're going to bind this to a database. So this collection, we are going to bind to Xano, but before we do that, we need to do some setup work here on the data side with Xano. So Xano is a REST API. So we need to add a REST API plugin to our application, and then we can start adding the collections and adding the calls. So first collection I'm going to add, we'll call it display past weather. It is going to be, the source will be the REST API. It's going to be a dynamic collection, meaning we are going to be working directly with the Xano backend. Mm-hmm. We are not going to store the data anywhere in the WeWeb system. It is not going to be cached anywhere. Calls will go directly to Xano and bring the data into WeWeb directly from Xano. That's what dynamic means in essence. And dynamic is what you would use for highly scalable applications where you need to make lots of frequent calls, and you have no throttling limitations on the APIs. So it'll be a get.
You mean, sorry, because you said dynamic.
Sorry, what did I say?
You said dynamic, but you were meaning catch, no? Because if you need to, it's
with the many calls, I was meaning, but you can do it with Xano, because one of the cool things about Xano is that if you sign up for the paid tier, they have no rate limit for the API. So whereas the free tier gives you, I don't remember exactly how many calls the Xano guys can chip in, how many calls per second. I think 20 calls per second or something like that. But with a paid tier, you have unlimited calls.
Typically, if I made, like, we recommend cached when people have like a slow backend or API, or Airtable, for example, like third-party tools, their API have like quite strong rate limiting. So if you use cached, we store the data on our servers, on our like databases, so you don't hit your tools anymore, and you can make like lots of calls really fast. But yeah, I mean, Xano is also a backend that's really tailored for scaling, so normally it should be okay with dynamic.
Yeah. Okay, so here, we are creating the call, so we just add the endpoint from Xano very simply. So we want all the records, so we just copy the endpoint here, go back to here, copy the endpoint, and that's basically it. So you see that we already displayed, WeWeb already has fetched all the data from the Xano collection. And that's basically it. And so now we can bind this table to that collection. And you do it very simply by selecting the element. And then you...
First, you'll have to bind the collection list.
Yeah.
Like with the purple icon.
Yeah. So we bind the collection list first. And so you will see that the first row was suddenly multiplied by the number of records we have in the Xano database, okay? And now what we can do is we can bind the individual, fields and then tidy up the table a little bit. So let me get rid of this icon. We don't need that, and we don't need the pictures either, the photos. So I'll just tidy that up a little bit. So here, so the first element will be the name of the city. Voila, you see all the cities here. Moving quickly along, second will be the country. That's it. Third, we will display the temperature in Celsius. Dima, only -4 in Yekaterinburg is very disappointing for this time of the year. For the record, I worked for 7 years in Siberia, so I know the country very well. Okay, here we have the team, but we don't have any text to bind, so we will quickly add a text field in there, in here, into this flex box, and we will tie this to the wind data. That's it, and we need actually one more.
You can just copy paste a column because the first one is still existing, but because you try to bind it before binding the collection, it's like the text disappeared, but it's still here.
Okay, I will copy another text here.
What you can do, I mean.
Oh no, hold on.
Oh no.
That was in the wrong place.
But what you can do is like delete the first
it's here. I just need
column.
to unbind it.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, so this one will bind to the last update there. So we know the last update when it was done in that, in that place, and make this a little smaller. Yeah, so it's a little tighter. We'll not mess with the format. So here we have the table. Let me just quickly do this. Okay, so we have the table here. So let's focus on the on the top section. So here we want to add the input box. So we will handle that with a form. Probably the subscribe form will be the one that would be the best fit. Okay, so
because it's not in the, like you put it in the first flex box. Not in,
it's okay. I will tidy it up. Give it some width. I'll give it fixed width. Okay.
Yeah, like the magic of front-end design.
Yes. So that'll be one div, and here I'll add another div. And the left and right will be in that div. like so. Okay, and I'll give it some space here. 50. So here will be the entry box, and here will be the map. So maybe let's start with the map because that is the interesting part. So the map we are going. So this becomes a little less intuitive, and that is something that will be resolved in the WeWeb roadmap by adding a Google plugin, which is right now not available. So we need to do it only as an iframe. So very simply, we are going to add an iframe element in here into the left box. We will give it a fixed height, let's say 500. And it will be a 100% width, so it will cover the entire width. Now, as I said, we want to, or what you see here is Google Map, is an embedded Google Map, and we're going to do the same thing here. So you can go to Google, and again, you see an API key here, but I'm going to recreate it after this. So you can go to the Google Map platform, and you can find this, you can Google it up, and you can find the source for the iframe. So I'll just copy the source link together with my API key, and I'll put it right in here. And what that is going to do is that is going to display Google Map with the default markers. Now, we do not want this default map here and the default marker. We want to display the city that we are searching for. So we'll get to that in a moment. And on the right side, we'll put some padding of 50 and add some text.
Yeah, as Aurélie said, there is a map element with Google Map inside WeWeb, but like Slavo has done it with iframe for this like demo, so we'll continue with that. But you could also use like the map element. I mean, it works the same. So yeah.
Oh, where did I go? Okay, so current weather, and underneath we will put a few more divs with the data we want to display. And here we will put country.
Yeah, so like the element you want to display from the query, the current query.
Yes. So on one side will be the label, and on the other side will be the actual data. Okay. So country. The next one down will be temp, C. And the next one down will be wind, kph. And the actual values we will bind to the data. So first thing, let's start with adding a weather for a city through this form. So we do that by binding this form to a workflow. Very, very cool thing in WeWeb are the workflows. So we're going to create an API call that will grab the value entered into this form and send it to Xano to create and to grab the weather data and store it in the database. Okay. So the way how we do that is we add a workflow. We call it get weather. The trigger will be on click. Sorry, on submit.
And submit, yeah.
Yeah, on
because
submit.
it's a form.
Yeah, because it's a form, exactly. And the reason why you want to do it this way through form, because then you can set up conditions here that, for example, you cannot call the API if there is no entry in the field. You have these validations in a form. So that's quite important. So choose an action. We are going to make an API call, so API request. And the API request we are going to call is this one, get weather. Okay. So just to remind you, we need to enter city for that call in order to execute it. So it will be a get call. Here is the URL. And the parameter we are going to give it, city, is going to come from this input field. Okay. So we bind this value to a variable which comes from here. Okay, it's called email. I didn't change the name, but
basically it's like a variable that was auto-generated by WeWeb using the input name. And because, in the toolkit it's an email, but you can change it here. It will change the name.
Exactly.
And also the type,
and the placeholder here, and the type will be a short answer. Okay, so now, when I go back to that workflow that I just built, you will see that if I go back to the edit formula, it will display the right value. Okay, enter city value. Okay, so I'll run that call. So what it is going to do, it is going to go to Xano. It is going to get the external data and write it to that database table. And what I want to do, I want to update this table below and with a new value. So to do that, I'm going to fetch a collection. I'm going to fetch the display past weather collection. And finally, what I want to do is I want to erase the value that I put into this input field. So I'll do that by change variable value. It will be this enter city value, and we want to enter a blank. That's it. So if I've done my job correctly,
hopefully.
Hopefully. Now, when we test the application and I enter a city here, let's see, anyone voted for a city that we try? No requests. Okay.
But we can try maybe New York, for example.
New York, great idea. Okay, so we hit New York. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, you see, so we got the weather for New York, and it was added to the table at the top. Now, we didn't place it on the map yet, and we didn't bind any of these things yet, but the call works, and it is in here. So just to make sure, San Francisco.
Okay, I'm sorry, by the way, we are a bit late, but like we'll take maybe, I think, 10 more minutes, 15 more minutes to finish the app.
Okay, so that's it. So the next thing I want to do is let's work with a map. So for the map source, so here we have to create a function. This is the less intuitive part that will change with the Google plugin. But we need to generate iframe. And
okay, you've done it like that, because you can also like bind the iframe source with the URL and use the concatenate function. And I use variable.
I am using the flow method. The flow method is what I've learned. So we'll generate a function with two calls, and there are many ways how you can do many things here.
Yeah.
So,
but that's funny to see how people are using these kind of tools, because like you can use them in so many ways.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if it works in the end.
Yeah. So we will return a function, and again, the function will be basically this URL with the parameters. So it's a function that where we are going to replace the key with a variable. and the location also with a variable.
Yeah, so like right here, what you see is basic JavaScript. So
Yes.
that's
Yes.
the way WeWeb works. Like we provide lots of no-code functions, but if you want to really customize the front end, you can still like use JavaScript functions the way you want. And so like this function basically is taking the key and the city and recreating the URL for the whole map.
Okay, I don't want it to be in 2 lines, so I'm not sure whether that will work. Okay, we'll find out very quickly. Okay, so then the iframe I will bind to a function that I have just created. So it's a custom function called generate iframe. There we go. So I have it works. So the plugin is here, but now we need to give it the 2 variables. So the first variable was the key. Oh, I have not defined that yet. So sorry. I need to create.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a string, and it is going to be copy API. And I apologize, I'm moving a little faster right now because we are out of time. So coming back to here, so it'll be the Google API key, and then the second parameter is going to be, for the purpose of this exercise, will be the city value. So I'll show you how that works, but we will tweak it. So when I hit Paris, it shows the map of Paris, right? But we cleaned it. So, but to make this work, I need to make one more thing. So back in Xano, I need to define one more custom API endpoint. And that custom API point is going to be a get. And here I just want to determine the last.
Like take the last record from your database.
Exactly. Take the last record from the database.
Typed. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to return a single value in the descending order. That's it. So when I run this, it will give me just the final, yes, the last one that was created. Okay. So going back to the editor, we're going to add another collection. Call it last item. The source will be REST API, dynamic. And we will give it the endpoint of the call we have just created. That's it. And it will return just the last item, which is Paris. And it is the last item. Okay. And so now coming back to the map so that we make sure it always displays something. What we'll do here, we'll make this map display always the last record in this table. Okay. The last entry that was created. So we're going to adjust the function here. Instead of the city value, we are going to give it the last item of the data.
You're on the wrong collection.
No, sorry. Oh, sorry. Sorry, thank you.
No worries.
There. Oh, okay, hold on. I forgot to delete the first one. 1 second. It's okay.
Yeah, we're working on this input to make it like doable what you just tried. So like remove lots of stuff at one time.
It's okay. Generate iframe. It is very intuitive, in my opinion. So key, and now from the last item, it is Paris. And voila. So now this map will always display the last item. So coming back to the test, if we put Monaco and get weather. Oh, it didn't. Oh, sorry. Yes. The beauty of doing stuff live. So what I have not done, I have not refreshed. I have not fetched the collection. So here in this workflow, I need to fetch the last item collection. Okay. And now,
so that we also fetch the last city every time we enter something in the form.
So, and now it has Monaco. But if I add another city, Aberdeen, voila, it works. And so that's displayed now. So final thing here we want to do is want to bind these to what we are looking for. So that is very quick. We'll just bind this to the last item we had. So country will be United Kingdom. Country will be, oh, sorry, temperature C will be.
Last item, data, yeah. MC, you've got it here, yeah.
And wind will be kph. Last item, data, kph. So, okay, something, oh no, okay. So current weather, and the reason why I left this blank was because I wanted to do this. Just to show the dynamic nature of, so in, and I will give it a little spacing on each side, like so, and we'll bind this to the actual city. So last item, data, city, like that. And I wonder, will this conversion work? Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Make it bold. Okay. So what I wanted to do here is that now we are getting almost there. So let's say we have Russians on the call, Moscow. We get weather. And voila. So it created the record, it updated the map, and updated this right part as well. Okay. I could go on with the delete record, but I think it's time to stop here, Quentin, because we're over time. And I hope that our audience got the idea how to fairly quickly create an application using Xano and WeWeb. Again, I'm not a coder, and despite the fact that we had a few hiccups along the way, I think it is very easy to correct and recover. So yeah, fantastic combination. I'm very pleased. I can't wait to do more commercial projects with this. And that's me. I'll hand it over to you, Quentin.
Thank you a lot, Slavo. I mean, thank you for this awesome job, especially after push to production. Sorry for that. We had some small bugs, but yeah, we had a huge changes push to productions today. Next time, see you next week for another office hours with another use case. And don't hesitate to ping us in the chats or in the community on community.weweb.io. We are always available and asking for your feedback. And yeah, have fun with WeWeb. And thank you again, Slavo, for what you showed to us. It was awesome.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Bye.